Welcome to Batesville High School's Senior Parent Meeting webinar. I'm going to start with some contact information. I'm in the guidance office, Mrs. Stevens, and then Mrs. Burke. There are emails there. You're always welcome after this webinar to call with questions or send us an email. That's probably the easiest way to reach us is by email or set up a meeting. This was the agenda that we did for our senior meeting. There is a folder that your senior will receive during their senior meeting, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes, but there was a folder that we handed out during the meeting, and that folder will be given to your senior during their senior meeting with us, with Mrs. Burke or I. So we're going to do today an overview of what your senior will be doing throughout the school year, and then we're going to talk about how you can help your student have a successful progression of the senior year. Third, we've talked about a financial aid presentation. That presentation is actually not done through Batesville High School. We have a financial aid expert come in and discuss that. And so after you complete this webinar, you will probably notice, or hopefully notice in a couple days, a link that will be underneath it that will have the presentation for financial aid. It will not be set like this. It won't be in this context. It will not be a webinar, but it will at least show you the PowerPoint that was done. So let's start with what your student will do. The first thing that's going to happen here, probably starting next week or the week of probably August 22nd, is we will start meeting with every senior. And Mrs. Burke or I will sit down and we will discuss with your student. We'll go over their diploma type, their transcript, future plans, answer any questions that they may have about applications to colleges or about military, anything that they have. Our whole goal is that when your student walks off the stage in May, they have a plan. They have an idea of what they're going to do. And so the 10-minute meeting that we have with them, it's a brief one, but it's one to get them started thinking about that. There is a sheet that we go through with them. It's a senior plan sheet, and it will be found on your student's computer. So you can, I would say in the next few weeks, by the end of September, if you want to take a look at that, it will be on their computer filled out. So plan for student success, progression of the senior year. Very important to just talk about your student's plan now. The senior year goes very fast, and it's very important that they start planning now for what they're going to do. So we're going to talk about three major areas. We're going to talk about college, we're going to talk about military, and we're going to talk about workforce. These are all options for your student after graduation. And they all come with some key elements of things that they need to do throughout the school year to make that a successful transition. So starting with colleges and universities, it's important that your student take those college visits. Even if they've known for the longest time that they're going to go to a certain school but haven't visited yet, it's very important that they take that visit. They may get on that campus and decide maybe it's not the right fit for them. Some students think that they want to go to a big school and then decide they want to go small, and then vice versa. So it's important to take those college visits. And just make sure that those visits are prearranged with student services if they're during the school day. And you'll want to have that done, like it says, prearranged. Don't wait until after the visit to let us know. So college visits are very important, and we encourage those for our students. Moving on down to applications, once they decide where they think they want to apply to, have them do that no later than Thanksgiving break. The earlier the better, to be honest, but Thanksgiving break is kind of a turning point, especially a lot of students, scholarship-wise, merit scholarship-wise, they can't, if they apply after a certain date, they can't be eligible for the merit-based scholarships. So it's very important that around November tends to be that deadline. So be sure that you're checking those schools for merit-based scholarships and what the criteria are and what the deadlines are for that. And you want to just make sure your applications are in before. Talking about deadlines, we want to talk about early decision versus early action. This is critical because your students have the opportunity on their applications to check that they want to be an early decision student or an early action, or they may just say regular admission. Early decision and early action come with several perks, different perks depending on the school, so I'm not going to go into those in great detail, but they come with several perks. The one disadvantage of early decision, and it's a big disadvantage for some students, is once you make your decision, that is it. Early decision means that's where you're going to go. Your mind is made up. You're not going to change your mind in March, April, or May. That is your decision. It can be a binding contract. So it's very important, and in most cases it is a binding contract. It's very important that if you decide to be in the early decision group, it has to be the school you plan to attend. No questions asked, no changes. Early action is very similar. However, you still can entertain other schools and think about other financial aid packages and what other schools have to offer. So whereas early decision offers a lot of incentives for doing that, and so do early action, early decision means you've made your decision and you're not going to change it. Early action means I really think this is the school for me and I'm very dedicated to it, but I still would like to explore my options. Next, transcript requests. Any transcript that is sent out to schools or to colleges needs to be done through parchment. In your packet that your senior gets, there will be some information on parchment and a step-by-step guide on how to do this. It is important that you note that at the end of the parchment requesting page, if it asks you to pay for the transcript, then something was clicked wrong or put in wrong, because as a senior, your student should not have to pay for the transcript to go from Batesville High School to the particular school. So basically that's what parchment is. If applications are going to need a transcript, the record of all their classes here at Batesville High School. So your student will make a parchment account, they will go on it, and they will basically ask Batesville High School to send their transcript to a particular school. That should be free. If at the end of the request to send it, there is a charge, something has not been filled in correctly, so you'll want to go back through that and make sure you change that or adjust it. You don't want to have to pay. Now, once your student graduates from high school, if they use parchment to send their transcript from college to college or so on and so forth, then yes, there's going to be a charge. Continuing the plan for student success, along with the applications and the transcripts, a lot of times there is a counselor recommendation page or something called a secondary school report that the counselor must do. It's important for your student to go on our website, the Batesville High School website, go to the guidance link, click down and find the counselor recommendation survey, or I don't believe we call it a survey, but it's a counselor recommendation form. And basically it's a bunch of questions about your student that they need to fill out and get to us, so that when we send out a recommendation letter, we have some good information about what your student has done. For the most part, we may know academically what they've done, transcript-wise, and classes that they've chosen, but we may not know what they've done outside of school, things that we would want to include in a recommendation letter. So it's very important that they fill this sheet out before they give it to us. And it's something to think about if they're going to have other people fill out recommendations for them, such as teachers, principals, assistant principals, maybe somebody out in the community, that they also give them this paper, because it helps them fill it out. Moving right along to SAT and ACT testing, I strongly encourage that your student take the SAT or ACT more than once. If they haven't taken it all and they're a senior and they're planning to go off to college or think they might be, it's very important that they take this as soon as possible, because we want them to be able to take it more than once. Scores typically do improve the second time. So right now I'm showing you the dates. You'll see those November 5th, January 21st, May 6th for the SAT at Batesville High School, and the ACT September 10th and April 8th. There are definitely other dates of when the SAT and ACT are given, but these are the ones that are at the high school. NCAA, just want to add a quick note for that. If you have a student who plans to play sports in college, it's going to be important that they fill out the correct information and get all of that taken care of, especially Division I schools through NCAA. So if they think that they're interested in this, they just need to go to our guidance web link, go to NCAA, double click on the websites there, and that will help them through that process. Lastly, I want to talk about, on this slide, scholarships. Our website will have lots and lots of school-based and local scholarships on it. Again, you'll go to the guidance link, go to the drop-down, go to scholarships, and I put those up on the site in the order that we receive them. They're not necessarily by due date. So this is a nice way to help your student. If there's something that you'd like to be able to do to keep track of for them, would be the scholarships, because most of the scholarship, as a general rule, will be due February through April. And that is also a busy time for your senior. So we suggest and we encourage seniors to get on there weekly and look at the scholarships that have come in. But that's also something that a lot of times I think some of our senior parents take care of, and just check it out from time to time to see what's on there and see if there's something that their student would be able. Moving right along, still talking about students who plan to go to a 2 to 4 year school or an apprenticeship, something of that nature, college bound, or some type of schooling after graduation. I'm not going to go in great detail with financial aid. You'll be able to look at the presentation that is underneath this webinar citation on the web link, so you can take a look at that. However, I do want to mention that we do have something called a FAFSA completion day, and that is January 25th. That is when we have a FAFSA specialist come in, and they help folks put in their FAFSA information. So if you bring in all your tax information and all of the things that you need for that evening to put in, they will help and guide you through that process, and that is done in our media center. And that can be a very helpful session for someone that maybe doesn't have good internet connectivity at their home, or just isn't real good with the computer and it makes them nervous, or someone who it's just their first time putting the FAFSA form in and they just want to make sure it's done correctly. So something to think about. The next thing I want to talk about is the CHIPS verification form. This must be completed for seniors in February, those that are working towards an academic honors or technical honors diploma. This is a form that we put in a database, and it's a state database, and it is for colleges that if they are giving out money through the state for the academic honors, technical honors diploma, your student's name must be in this database to get that money. Now, this doesn't happen with all schools. Not all schools do it. But and that can change from year to year, but those schools that do it, if their name, if your student got a technical honors diploma, but they don't turn in the form to us that needs to fill out, it's called a CHIPS verification form. If they don't fill it out and bring it back to us so that we can put their name in the database, they will not get that money. So it's very important that when this verification form comes out, that it be filled out and turned back into the guidance office as soon as possible. The next thing I want to talk about is 7th semester transcript and final transcripts. It may happen that your student gets waitlisted for college. And if they do, they may say that they want a 7th semester transcript. Don't be too worried about that. It's at least a good sign that they haven't just denied your student. They're wanting to see what their grades are for this 7th semester. So with that being said, what you will do is you will request a transcript, a 7th semester transcript be sent to the school, and you'll do that through Parchment. And I would suggest that you wait until like mid-January so that you know that our transcripts are ready to go. But that is an important part of the process of applying to schools. Sometimes they've actually accepted the student and they still require that 7th semester transcript to make sure that they're on track. So just keep that in mind, that may happen. As for final transcripts, it's important that final transcripts are sent. I have had one situation, not while I was at this school, but I have had one situation, I've heard of one situation where a student did not turn in their final transcript, and that is the last piece of the puzzle for a college. That's basically the one that tells you that the student graduated. So because they didn't turn it in, they did not have a spot for that particular school year. Now, they got it all worked out and it was okay, but sometimes that may not happen. So if your school requests a final transcript, it is important that you do not forget that step in May, that final transcript is sent. May is a really busy time with graduation parties and everybody's happy to be done and summer vacations and all these things are happening. Just do not forget to do that final transcript because that is a vital part of finishing out the application process. Senior Plan Survey. The Senior Plan Survey is sent out by Mrs. Wappy, our guidance secretary, usually the 1st of May. This is something parents may not ever see. It gets sent to the student. The student responds. Basically, we're just wanting to know what their plans are after graduation. Are they going to college? What college? Are they planning to go out in the workforce? Where do they plan to work? If they're going into the military, what branch? We ask those questions. Sometimes we use those senior plan surveys for if a final transcript needs to be sent. So keep all of that in mind, and you might think to remind your student to get those back to us. Students are usually pretty good about it's a real short survey, it doesn't take very long, but those are vital for us to get back. And finally, talking about transcripts are the Ivy Tech transcripts. If your student took or will be taking a dual credit or dual enrollment course, those credits will be on the Batesville High School transcript at the bottom. However, most schools, such as IU, Purdue, Ball State, they will not accept those credits off our transcript. It has to come from the college. So, for instance, Ivy Tech. So it's going to be important that you request those transcripts from Ivy Tech, and I would do that mid-June, and make sure that those get to the particular college, because they will not, in most cases, accept them off of ours. And there is information in that senior packet that talks about how to get those transcripts. Moving right along, kind of gone through all of the college information, moving on to military. We have recruiter information in the guidance office. We would be happy to set up meetings with the recruiters that come in for your students. We'd also be happy to just give you the information, or you can come in and be with your student as they discuss information with the recruiter. All of those things have happened in the guidance office. One thing that the recruiter will ask for is transcripts, and they'll usually ask for it through the student. So we take care of that. We also take care of senior attendance letters. They're going to ask about their attendance, and they're going to ask about their graduation and if they're on track to graduate. And those letters are typically done by Mrs. Burke or I. That can be done in the guidance office. I skipped the ASVAB testing. I didn't mean to do that. In the sense, I wanted to talk about it last, because the ASVAB testing typically is a test that is connected to the military, because the ASVAB is used by the military to place its recruits. At the same time, the ASVAB test is an excellent career interest inventory. So at times, we have students, the majority of students that take the ASVAB at Batesville High School are not interested in the military. They're just interested in a career interest inventory. So the ASVAB scores that are done here at Batesville High School are not given to the recruiters. Students will have to take the test again if they're interested in the military, which talking with the recruiters is not a bad thing, because the ASVAB then is like a practice. The one that's here is like a practice for kids that are interested in the military, and then they'll take it again. Or it is also used for our students that are just interested in a career interest inventory. Because the ASVAB, it takes not only the questions that students ask about their interests and what they think they're interested in as a career, or what they like to do, but it connects them with how well they do in math and how well they do in reading, and they connect those scores to give them a really good idea of what might be a good career path for them. So there you'll see that our ASVAB here at Batesville High School will be given September 22nd. And the sign up is September 9th for that. So they have to be signed up by September 9th, and then we'll give the ASVAB on the 22nd. Moving right along to workforce. A couple things that we can help students with workforce is typically the final transcript is used as showing graduation. So a lot of times, if students are interested in going directly into the workforce to show high school graduation, they use transcripts. Years ago, we made copies of diplomas. We typically don't do that. Well, we don't do that any longer here. At the high school, we give transcripts out. The other thing that we have done in the guidance office is help students with resumes, and we use Resume Builder to do that. That's something to talk with your student about and keep in mind. A lot of our students that are going into the workforce right after graduation. They typically have their jobs already because they are looking for employment in April and they're planning ahead. And we help them with interview skills, resume building, all of that helps move them along and get them on their way. Planning for the remainder of the senior year. Talking about transcripts, it's important that your student, there will be a transcript in their senior packet. It's important that your student take a look at it, make sure it all looks correct, that all SAT scores are there, ACT scores are there, their dual credits are there. We want to make sure that those are in the best shape that they can be before we send them out to school. So make sure that they take a look at that. Something that's very important is to stay on top of senior grades. Senior grades, even our top students, will begin to slip. Something called, I know that you've probably all heard of it before, it's senioritis. It does happen. It happens usually the last semester, February, March, they're starting to get it. Just be aware of that and watch your student and make sure, even the strongest students start to realize the end is near and may kind of back off a little bit. That's definitely not the time to do that, as transcripts are still being watched. Recommendation letters, important that you could go ahead and start even thinking about who would be good as recommenders for scholarships, for applications. We ask that anyone that you need a recommendation letter from, that you give them some time, give them a week or two to get it ready for you, or ready for the student. We don't want, the best recommendation letters are typically not written overnight. And so make sure that you give your recommenders or your suggest to your students that they give their recommenders some time to get those letters done. Something that can be done now is starting a resume of extracurricular activities and volunteer time. What we typically suggest is that you break it up by 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade, and then prior to that, and discuss anything that you would have done here at school, whether your student has done clubs, whether they have done activities outside of school, like church activities, or helped with anything that they haven't been paid for, sports, awards, all of those things you can start jotting down and getting organized. A lot of times what you'll find, if you go to type all of that up and want to send it off right away, you're probably going to forget something. So it's a good idea to start that list now, and that way you can go back to it and adjust and add. And the last thing that I've got here is to enjoy the year with your student. It will go quick, and before you know it, they will be graduated. So take the time, and there's a lot going on here with the senior year. Mrs. Burke and I, Mrs. Stevens, are here to help you. Batesville High School is here to help you, and we want this to be an enjoyable experience. So please do not hesitate to call, email, set up appointments, and just remember to enjoy the year. Just some important websites that I've noted on here. It's just our guidance website, the FAFSA website, the NCAA clearinghouse are for students that are interested in athletics. Important dates, we've just added all of those on there. I mentioned the fall picture retake. The reason I mention that is your students had their pictures taken as seniors the first 3 days of school. That is the picture that's going to be on their transcript. So if they forgot to dress up that day, or the picture they decide doesn't look that great, it's important that they go ahead and have that retaken so that we can get that on the transcript. Again, here is our guidance information, our contact information. Probably the best way to reach us is through email, or the quickest probably way. And that's it. This ends our webinar. As I stated previously, there should be a link underneath this one to our financial aid session.